Welcome back and thank you for staying with the broadcast. As the Ministry of Health awaits its supply of COVID-19 vaccines from the COVAX facility, social commentator John Peter has given the Ministry of Health a failing grade at its plan for vaccination of its people. Peter says that no level of comfort has been given to the public in that regard.
The Ministry has never engaged in mass vaccination in its entire history, and therefore you need to create some sort of mechanism for that particular rollout. If you look at the larger countries, they have all had problems with mass vaccination. The United States, the UK, Europe, France, all of them. The only country that has done it with distinction is Israel. And it means that we need now to begin to look at how are we going to roll out this thing. Whether it is that you're using your statistical department to look at your demography and where your populations are, the ages of the people, what community you're going to attack first, where you're going to set up your vaccination centers. That sort of analysis, I'm not convinced, is in train at this point in time.
While Prime Minister Alan Chastanet has alluded to the country being in discussion with the government of India to acquire vaccines, Peter says that that alone is not sufficient to vaccinate the percentage of the population that is necessary to reach herd immunity.
You cannot sit down and rely on 20% from COVAX. You have to be proactive. You have to use your Ministry of Foreign Affairs to do the engagement with India and with the other countries that have started the whole process in China also and Taiwan. Engage them and try and see if we can broaden the number of vaccines that we can bring into the island at this point in time. So I really believe there's a lot of work to be done in terms of mass vaccination. I'm not convinced that the ministry has any plan that can be deemed plausible, and I believe that it is time now for some response to be very clearly demonstrated to the public.
That was social commentator John Peter. In other news, the COVID-19 pandemic has shed light on issues affecting inmates at the Bordelais Correctional Facility. Over the past weeks, the inmates have used the pandemic to vent their frustration about other issues that they are faced with, including lengthy stays at the facility and court appearances. National Security and Justice Minister Hermangill Francis addressed some of these at the Senate on Wednesday.
On February 2nd, 2021, inmates at the Bordelais Correctional Facility staged a protest to express their grievances, including the threat of COVID-19 and the handling of their court matters. The incident turned violent and left inmates injured, as well as police officers and corrections officers. In Senate on Wednesday, National Security and Justice Minister Hermangill Francis gave an update on the situation and how the facility would deal with issues moving forward.
We are in the process of assessing devices which will prevent inmates from doing the live stream that we saw. The police and fire and Bordelais officers for their bravery and commitment to duty. I am arranging a meeting with the inmates to listen to their concerns. The inmates use the issue of COVID, which is a legitimate concern, to highlight the issue with court appearances. Again, also a legitimate concern.
The minister added that the landscape of the court system has changed and that the Chief Justice has added an additional judge to deal with matters virtually. Francis said that a document had been taken to Cabinet, which was approved to facilitate trials by judge only.
We will also be looking at cases where inmates have been on remand for an inordinate length of time, to be in a position to make recommendations to the relevant authorities, including the DPP and the Governor General. Parole has now been added and must be looked at by the inmates as a rehabilitative tool. If the inmates, by their conduct and industry and participation in the programs being offered at the facility, they can be eligible for parole.
The minister asked that the inmates make use of services of visiting justices to the facility.
These justices can visit the facility without giving notice to the management of or the PS of Home Affairs. They are entitled to speak to all inmates privately and to make recommendations to the minister without identifying an individual or a unit.
9 inmates who were thought to be the instigators of the protests have been placed in maximum security. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
A video has gone viral with an individual accusing officers of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force of destroying a cannabis farm. Activists have come out to decry this action. They say this move can be seen as hypocrisy, as St. Lucia is currently in the process of decriminalizing the herb. Yet it appears that they are actively still deterring individuals from preparing to enter the industry.
St. Lucia is currently in the process of negotiating for the decriminalization of the possession and use of cannabis on island. A video has made waves on social media with an irate individual accusing the Royal St. Lucia Police Force of burning his farm. The video has caught the attention of activists who have been agitating not only for the decriminalization of the herb, but the full legalization. President of the Ayanola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari, Aaron Alexander, has come down heavily on the RSLPF and the government of St. Lucia for what he says is straight-up hypocrisy.
On one hand, the government and the authorities is talking about legalizing cannabis, and yet still they fail to show good faith in, first of all, as I've said before, in releasing people that are incarcerated for cannabis, which would help bring down the population of the prison, and also to stop this eradication that is continuing within the St. Lucia society. We are talking about legalizing cannabis. This is the time for the farmers to get ready. This is the time for St. Lucians to start planting their cannabis to ensure that we're ready for the market. The government is talking about legalizing very soon. The government is saying that the legislative process is going through and everything is being prepared, etc., etc. So the farmers must be ready.
Interim President of the Herbal Cooperative, Andre De Caris, has asked that this action be condemned. He says the government needs to come out and make the findings of the various research done on cannabis available to the public. He says given the circumstances that we are now living through, more consideration needs to be given to individuals who are using this as a means of survival.
We are asking the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Commerce, and the Attorney General to condemn these actions in the strongest way possible. We are in the middle of a pandemic and economic lockdown for almost a year, where the poor are paying the most heavily, where many have lost their jobs and are doing anything just to survive. And for this government-sanctioned vandalism to go unaddressed will be nothing less than shameful. It has been almost 5 years and the administration has failed to present a bill to Parliament in spite of the formation of 3 local commissions and the local commission report, the CARICOM report, the Permandu report, which by the way all recommend full legalization. The actions carried out by the officers in the video reveal the great hatred and contempt that some officers still have for cannabis farmers, regardless of the fact that we are in the process of legalization.
Many countries regionally and internationally continue to legalize or decriminalize cannabis. Alexander says, however, St. Lucia continues to drag its feet with the process. He says St. Lucian authorities need to make a decision as they are foregoing many benefits.
Right now, Jamaica has a cannabis shortage. Canada has a cannabis shortage. And here we are talking about tourism as our savior, and that will only lead us into slavery, because Derek Walcott spoke to us and mentioned about plantation by the sea. We have to be very careful with those things. And yet still, with the authorities and the politicians keep promoting tourism. That cannot be right. Agriculture have saved us before, and agriculture will save us again. Right now, we could be exporting cannabis to Jamaica and even Canada.
While consultations continue into the decriminalization of cannabis, it must be noted that the possession, use, and distribution of cannabis is still illegal in St. Lucia. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Many calls were made during the unsettlements at the Bordelais Correctional Facility to have inmates who were incarcerated for small quantities of cannabis to be freed. On Tuesday, Minister for Commerce and Chair of the Cannabis Reform Committee, Bradley Felix, was asked for his opinion on the matter, given that St. Lucia is working on decriminalizing the product. Genevieve Gonzague got his response.
Following the riots at the Bordelais Correctional Facility, where inmates went live on social media platform Facebook to air their grievances on how the COVID-19 situation was being dealt with at the facility, many calls have been made by activists to have individuals who were incarcerated for cannabis or petty offenses vindicated. According to the Cannabis Reform Committee, a framework has been established to negotiate the way forward for the decriminalizing of cannabis in St. Lucia. On Tuesday, Minister for Commerce and Chair of the Reform Committee, Bradley Felix, indicated that the calls which are being placed should not solely be for the vindication of individuals incarcerated for marijuana.
You know what I really wish the calls would have been for? I really wish the calls would have been why there are so many people at Bordelais and they have not had the day in court. I think that is where our focus should really be. Why are there so many people on remand and why there are so many people who have not given a date for the trial? I think that is where our focus should be and that is what we should try to correct.
Where exactly is St. Lucia in its efforts to decriminalize the possession and use of cannabis, and when can the public expect to see the decriminalization come to fruition?
I hate to give a timeline because it is something that I've been trying to get to the table for a while, but as I said, there's a process. Currently, the matter is with the Attorney General Chambers. They are drafting the legislation going forward. It will be brought for review. I am hoping sooner than later. I do not want to pronounce a date, but what I would like to say is I would prefer it sooner than later.
He says, however, negotiations and consultations continue to ensure that the decriminalization process is a smooth one. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
The government of St. Lucia recently donated some 5,000 ebooks to students around the island in a bid to assist with the new normal, which is online learning. Given this, many have questioned what would have been had the one laptop per child program had never been discontinued. Opposition Senator Gibeon Ferdinand questioned the rationale behind providing ebooks over laptops. The Education Minister, however, maintains that there is no point in supplying a child a device without providing the adequate requisites for them to be used effectively.
Many continue to question the sentiments expressed by Education Minister Dr. Gil Rigobert a few years ago about the laptop program initiated by the St. Lucia Labour Party. As students continue to navigate the world of online education, the current administration has come under immense scrutiny for discontinuing the program. Dr. Rigobert on Tuesday maintained that the government took the decision for all the right reasons, but explained that ICT in schools is definitely the way forward.
The sentiments that I harbored today about e-education and what form it should take is not something that evolved overnight, but it has been a long journey, given my own academic involvement with respect to exploring the benefits to be had from the integration of ICTs in education. If we were to read that article today, it would be interesting to see what progress we've made. But certainly, the ubiquity of technology in education has long been established, and there's no turning back. This is just the new reality.
The government recently made donations of some 5,000 ebooks and MiFi devices. Opposition Senator Gibeon Ferdinand on Thursday questioned the fuss behind the type of devices being given. He says the government is simply trying to put on a show as they realize now the benefits that would have been derived from continuing the laptop initiative.
What is in the ebooks that is not in the laptop? I'm saying yes, laptops may not be all you can give a child, but if you can give a child ebooks, tell me what it is that a child can do with ebooks that a laptop could not have done. It's like chalk and cheese. You say that bread and cheese is not good enough, but you give me dry bread. So I don't think there is any argument in that. I think the government has failed to take back the unpopular statement that the Minister for Education made some time ago, the Kiga and Kiasa statement, and now they just have no way out of it. CXC has caught up with them, online learning has caught up with them, COVID has complicated the issue, and they're not ready to face it. So there are all kinds of excuses and substitutes are being tried, but it's clearly showing that the country is just not ready for what is coming up.
Dr. Rigobert, however, explained that the government is ensuring that students are equipped with not just devices, but all other tools that are needed to ensure effective use of ICT in schools.
One of the things that we were very clear about on entering office is that to equip students with a laptop without the accompanying digital skills or curriculum or to ensure that teachers themselves are comfortable with learning platforms and any other programs that might accompany the laptops would be inadequate. And that is why we have always advocated for a very comprehensive program that includes several pillars. One, connectivity, infrastructural and technical support, equipping students and teachers with adequate knowledge so that we can leverage the technology.
The government of St. Lucia has promised in the coming days that more students will be receiving e-books and MiFi devices to assist with online learning. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us, we have more news after this break.